Okay, speaking of the characters, you've played a lot of great recurring characters on Late Night, from the traveling joke salesman to the interrupter to my personal favorite, Frankenstein.
Oh, thanks.
What's been your favorite character to play over the years?
That's a good question. I've enjoyed a lot of them for various different reasons. I think one of them that I've never really gotten tired of is probably although I haven't not that I've gotten tired of the other ones, but
right.
I always enjoy working on and performing the interrupter sketches.
Yeah.
I usually write those with Michael Coman, who actually originally had the concept for the character. Originally he was just a guy who interrupted the new characters piece.
Yeah.
And it was literally just a quick interruption kind of thing. And it evolved as we worked on it into him, kind of developing a more and more horrible life. And,
yeah.
and being gleefully okay with it. And but that's one I've always enjoyed. I've always enjoyed doing the crooner, crooner ghost, just because the idea of like pleasantly singing about things that would be unacceptable even in his own time,
Yeah, I was going to ask that. How fun is it to come up with such horribly offensive lines and then get away with it?
It really is a lot of fun. My only concern is, and I know you can't help this because some people are always going to misinterpret it, but like I always try to make it clear that his views would have even been unacceptable in his own time,
right.
that he was murdered, and that
that's why
no one would have put up with it,
yeah.
and that I've actually been surprised at times when someone takes it at face value and says, "I hate the way he sings about women," and I'm like, and I guess I can't fault them for having that interpretation, but it's certainly the last thing in the world I ever intended was for him to be taken.
You think they'd understand it's a comedy show?
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. You can't really worry about it, and but I've been amazed at some of the things people have taken offense in over the years that you've been like, oh, really? You didn't? Sometimes I always assume he's over the top enough that people would just kind of understand that he's horrible and that that's the joke. But
I guess some people.
You just never know, So, but.
Now you've worked on the show for I think around 10 years.
Yeah,
now?
a little over 10. It's hard to believe.
Do you still ever get starstruck meeting any celebrity guests or people you admire?
Oh yeah, and it's funny too because sometimes it's hard not to get excited when guests that make everybody excited to hear, like someone like Bill Murray or supporter Tom Hanks or people like Springsteen stop by to see Max or something. I mean, it's hard not to get starstruck. Or Neil Young when he was here,
From Winnipeg, by the way.
Oh, is he really? That's cool.
Anyway.
Yeah, he's great. And I often find they're often like some of the nicest people in the hallway to everybody. Like they're oftentimes but I do, sometimes the people I'm most starstruck by, though, are people that the audience might not be all that familiar with. Like Paul Westerberg from The Replacements, when he was on, I get the feeling that maybe some of the people didn't quite know who he was. Or when Michael Palin from Monty Python was on, some people might think of him almost like primarily as a travel guy these days or something. But he was a huge inspiration to me when I was starting out. So, or an author like Mark Lehner who wrote like Et Tu Babe, or these things that that I've always gotten a lot of that have been big inspirations for me. That sometimes they'll come on and they may not be all that well known with the crowd, but they'll make me kind of starstruck.
Right.
But I'm equally starstruck by people like Barry Amazon or something.
Okay, yeah, the big people. So it's still it still hasn't fully sunk in that you're here and.
Oh no, yeah. I hope I never really lose that. I doubt I will, because like it's just amazing. Like and now and then it'll almost seem surreal. Like I remember when Kirk Douglas was on the show, and there's people that you don't really think of as real people. Like you forget that, especially like an old movie star. That, you forget that they were a human being that stood in a space and like took up space. And that's particularly amazing when you see someone like that, or Michael Caine, or Anthony Hopkins, or these people that you've seen in movies for years, and you don't think of them as real people, really. Yeah. So I still get very starstruck. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. I'm curious, why do you think Late Night has become so successful over the years? Because not only has Conan become the most critically acclaimed of the late night talk show hosts, but so many of the writers and sketch performers like Robert Smigel, Dimitri Martin, Amy Poehler, Jack LaFryer have gone on to big Hollywood success.
Oh yeah.
Well, what do you think the formula? Like, it's quite a successful show and breeding ground.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that, first of all. And we've been incredibly proud to have gotten a chance to work with some of these people that have gone on to other things, like Amy, and all these people from the UCB that we used as almost like a repertory acting company for years. And it's funny because I know you can say hindsight's 20/20, but like they always impressed me just as much back then as they do now.
Right.
Like, so I was always a fan of theirs, like even then. So it's strange because I'm still a huge fan of theirs, but I'm also very happy for them. But I think some of it might be the level of the fact that our show has, we're encouraged to kind of do what we think would be fun to try,
right.
And there's kind of a loose. We're encouraged at least to write things we'd want to see ourselves, and to kind of play the kind of characters we want to see ourselves. And I think that goes back a lot to the spirit of the Chicago scene, which Amy and Jack and all those guys came out of too, and Smigel, and even though he's from New York, he worked a lot in Chicago,
right.
and not that that's the only place that.
No, but the vibe, because it's not the two big cities. It's
yeah, and I think the other thing about Chicago that reminds me here is that because Chicago is a bit more low profile than LA or New York, the way our show is a little more low profile than maybe a show like SNL, it's you feel a little bit less scrutinized by the public, and you're a little less judged based on. Like at SNL, I kind of feel for them sometimes because it's like people are always comparing them to that season or this season or the last week. And here we're sort of like we're left alone a little bit more, I think, to kind of and I think I think because it's SNL is such a more high profile show, they're also the downside of that, I think, is that they're under so much more scrutiny.
Yeah.
And, and so I think they still manage to take chances, which is great, but I think that it's nice in some ways to be a little more low profile sometimes and just kind of feel like, if you try something and it doesn't work that well, it doesn't feel like it's the end of the world,
Yeah. Okay,
so,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so there's kind of a loose experimental feel at the show. I don't know if it's how people would compare that to how it was early on or whatever. Maybe it's less, maybe it's more. It's hard to say, but we are encouraged to kind of write stuff we'd want to see ourselves, which is nice.
Yeah. Now, these last couple weeks, especially during your 2-week off time, there's been some more tidbits, news about Conan's move to The Tonight Show in 2009, including word that they plan, according to NBC, they plan to keep as much of the staff as possible. Has there been much talk around the show about the move to 2009 or the move to The Tonight Show, and would you be willing to make the move out to LA to work for The Tonight Show?
I'm embarrassed to say I know about as much as anyone. Like it's kind of funny, we don't really talk about it much. As I know it's a very strong possibility that that's all going to happen. And, but I kind of have this. I've tried to kind of keep the attitude that anything could happen, and not expect anything, and not be caught unexpected either. Just kind of, but I know it's a real strong possibility that we can all end up out in LA and that we'll be doing The Tonight Show. I think so. And I've loved working with at the show so much, and I've loved working with all these people so much that I kind of prepare myself for a very strong possibility of being out there working with all of them. But it's hard to imagine, not doing it here and not being here anymore. But I think the nice thing about being in LA was we do have a lot of friends out there now, and there's a good community of people out there, not just people we knew from Chicago, but people we knew in New York that live there now. And so I think that would make it easier to make the transition if we did. I think, and UCB even has a theater there, which is great, and Improv Olympic, and so it's a little hard for me to imagine living in LA just because I've never done it, but I know a lot of our other friends felt that way before they moved there, and there's a lot of things going on.
ShowbizMonkeys.com